welcome. We're here in Philadelphia, home of the NFL 2017 draft, where, of course, the slogan is "The future is now." So let's get going with it. The future is now for the Revu 2017 product as well. I'm going to go ahead and skip to the next slide. The idea behind Bluebeam, I'm assuming most of you already have the product and you're here for what's new. A couple of the main features about Bluebeam is not only is it a print driver for creating PDFs, and there are a lot of those out there, but it's also for editing them. You can delete or redact parts of documents. You can sign and seal them. You can mark them up, and you can collaborate with this product. So it's a lot more than just a PDF driver. The core functionality inside, again, it's an intuitive interface, easy to use markups. I'll show you the tool chest, a couple of things in there, and the advanced markup list, and some collaboration online. The intuitive interface part, once you start using the product, it's pretty easy to understand. I think the hardest part of any software is learning where things are. So the more you use it, obviously, the more you'll learn where those things are. Bluebeam Revu comes in a lot of different flavors, but all the flavors include what's called Bluebeam Studio, and it has two different features. One is basically real-time online collaboration with up to 500 additional partners who don't actually have to own the studio product. They can use a free product called View. And then there is basically a simple online file management software called Projects, where you can upload your entire project, not just PDF files, which you use in sessions, but all of your documents, and those are stored on Amazon web servers. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to show you what are the new features in the product. So the one that is being touted as the super duper new feature by Bluebeam is the dynamic fill. Now, I personally am not sure this is the super duper one, but let me show it to you because it is pretty cool. It is actually much better to use this in a complex curvilinear shape rather than a complex linear shape, but let me show you both of those. So I have a file open here, and you'll notice in this particular room there are a couple of openings, and so we have to close those off. It kind of almost works like hatching in other programs. So up here on the top of the screen, in the command bar, so again, just for logistics, the top of the screen here is the command bar, and as you click on different tabs at the top, you'll see that the icons on the right change, the icons on the left don't. We have some toolbars below that. On the left, we have very cleverly named the left panel, and on the right, we have the cleverly named right panel, and usually at the bottom we have the markup list. Okay, so I'm going to be moving around in those particular areas. So for measure, we have this new item here called dynamic fill, and when I click on that, we get this new toolbar attached to the top of the view area. And what I want to do is click on settings first of all, and you can set boundary widths and fill size. I'm finding as I use this, the best thing to do is set the boundary size as small as possible, and it still needs to be made smaller than that, but that will probably be coming in a future update of the product, and also adjusting your sensitivity. Now I'll click on that gear again, and I'll go ahead and add a boundary line. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit to try to get this a little more accurate, and double click at the end of that. And then I'll come down here and add one over here and double click at the end of that. Okay, so now I'm ready to run the fill, and the fill is the next tool over here at the top left. And when I click on that, I hold down my left button and start to fill the boundary in. Okay, so once you have your boundary filled, you then choose on the create area up here at the top what you want to create. Now what I want to create is area. So I go ahead and click on the area measurement tool, and then I click apply, and it goes ahead and creates that. One of the things I have found, and this is just a caveat to you that use this for estimating purposes, is that you'll notice down here, we get a little bump out based on the width of that line. So the more of these enclosures you have, the more of these control points you're going to have. And if you have outlets or other things in the room, you'll get additional control points. You can click on that boundary, right-click on a control point, and choose to remove it, right? So you can subtract that out, and I could do the same over here. So you could slowly but surely adjust the boundary. In reality, in a space like that, if you had to do a lot of that, you could probably redraw it or draw it faster. But let's take a look at, let's say, a boundary like this ramp here. So the ramp has an edge across there, maybe not one across there, but I'm going to just go ahead and let me go ahead and make sure that it actually closes off at the bottom here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a line across here at the bottom. And let's see if I can't get that line to go in. Let me try that again. Single click here, and then I will double click there. There we go. Okay, so let's try the dynamic fill in that particular area. So I'll go ahead and start to place that. Well, I need a line at the other end as well, so let's cancel that. I will close that and not save that. Let me bring that back again. So I needed a line at both ends. So we'll go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and click. Actually, let me click here, reset this. For some reason, again, it doesn't remember. So again, that'll probably be in an update as well. So let me put a line on the edge here. Never can be sure when you need a boundary line and when you don't. Let me pick there, and I will double click there. Okay, let's try that again. So I'll go ahead and use the dynamic fill. This time, hopefully it'll find that line and stop at that edge. And we can then go ahead and add a little bit more inside of there and add a little bit more inside of there. And we can go ahead and choose the area tool and then pick apply. And we should get our area. It looks like it canceled it on me for some reason, but again, it normally will work just fine. So it's much easier to go ahead and get those curved boundaries using this tool, I think. Okay, let's go back over to the PowerPoint. The next thing is something called Quantity Link. Now, this is in the Extreme product only. I believe Extreme's about $100 more than the CAD Revu CAD product. My salespeople don't love me a lot for saying this, but every office should have at least one copy of Extreme. Not everyone in the office needs Extreme, but however many teams you have, at least each team should have a copy of Extreme. So let me show you how that quantity link feature works. For some reason, I have a frog in my throat, of course, trying to do the demo, even though I've been fine the whole time otherwise. Let me close this file, and I'm going to go ahead and open up a file that I've started here. And what I've been doing is I've been creating a tool in my tool chest over here, which is a square footage tool. And I made one of these tools here into that particular tool. The way you can do that is you can select a markup, right-click on it, and come down here to the bottom and just simply add that to your tool chest. So that's what I did because I have a bunch of these footings that are similar in size. But what I also did was I created an Excel spreadsheet, and in the Excel spreadsheet, I created this column called quantity, and then another column called units, and then a unit cost, and then for the last column, I multiplied unit cost by quantity. Now, I'm really a total Excel dunce, so I'm sure you guys who are good at Excel can create much more sophisticated sheets than I can. But I wanted to show you how this product links together using the Extreme version of it. So let me take Review and kind of reduce it in size here a bit and show you how this works. So if we look at this value over here, right, we look at this value here, 40.88. As I come into my file, as I begin to add additional footings, if I click on this, I want to make sure that the subject over here is called footings. So we got to kind of pay attention to that as we're working, because we'll see that I've tied that in over here in my Excel file. But I'll go ahead and place one of these, and watch this number, the 40.88 over on the left, as I place this. All right, you see how that's growing? The other thing that you can do is you can always double-click on a tool to switch from the drawing mode to properties, and I can now hold down my left button and drag a new shape. But again, you'll see this continues to update. If I came back over here and were to take that 1.1 and subtract that out, you'll see that that number automatically updates. So pretty clearly, you can tie in your markups inside of Revu into an Excel spreadsheet. Now, the way that works, if I right-click on that cell, there's with the Extreme product, it'll add to the Excel product this thing in the pop-up called Quantity Link. And what you would do, of course, is create a new one, but I already have one in there. So to show you what that is, what I've done is I've created this thing called volume from all the different options that were available. And then I could choose the subject that I wanted, and the subject or color or author, and then I put in the word footings. So it's really important that those two match, because if you put in a markup that doesn't say footings, it is not going to be included in there, okay? But anyway, that's a very, very powerful feature in the Extreme version of the product. So let me minimize that and bring this back up. Okay, so let's go back over to here. Automatic form creation, again, something else that's in the Extreme version only. Let me see if I can show you how that works. So I'll go ahead and close this. No, okay. So in my list, I have something here that's called the City of Philadelphia Business Income and Receipts Tax, or the BIRT. For those of you that work as employees or employers in the City of Philadelphia, this is the dreaded wage tax and business privilege tax. It's been renamed BIRT, and I won't complain bitterly about it. It comes at you a variety of different ways, but to add insult to injury, when you're ready to submit, you can get this PDF from the city, but you'll notice you can't fill anything in. All of these fields are non-assignable, or you can't put any text into them. And so you'll have to print this out, you'll have to hand write it out, and then send it in. Well, let me show you what you can do with Extreme. With the Extreme product, up here at the top on the Form option, I'll go ahead and click Form, and you'll notice I have something called Auto Create. So let me zoom out here, and I will go ahead and click the Auto Create function. And voila, what it's done, let me go ahead and do a quick save as, and I'll save this as the batch form create file. And now I can come in and click into any of these fields, and now it even recognizes if it's a checkbox or not, and now I can start to fill in that information. So that is pretty cool, I think. And again, this is in the Extreme product, so now we've got that batch link, and we've got this. So yeah, one copy at least in the office will give you lots more functionality than in the basic product. Oh yes, batch sign and seal. So one more thing that's in the Extreme product. You think I'm like trying to help with sales here, right? I am, but I'm doing it shamelessly. So I'm not trying to disguise it on you at all. Let me show you the batch sign and seal. Let me bring up a file here and say no to that, and I'm going to come over here, and here's my batch stamp PDF. Okay, so I reduced this guy down a bit to only, I think, 12 sheets in the set. And in each of these, I have an area here where we may need to sign and seal the documents. You may have a whole set, 300 or 400 sheet set, where you need to put your stamp and assign the drawings for security purposes. So we have the way to do that in the Extreme product. On the File tab at the top, we have the option here called Batch. Right? So it's up here at the top where the circle is kind of going in and out. And the last item is called Batch, Sign, and Seal. It's going to ask me for what file or files I want. I'll choose the Open File, and I'll click Next. Now, I've already set some things up in here at the top. I've already put in my signature, and I've already brought in a stamp. I'll talk about that. It also wants you to put in your password, and I've done this a dozen times, and 11 out of 12, I usually get this wrong. Let's see if I can get it right this time. Log in. Good, I did. Every other time it comes up, sup, wrong password. So I think I finally got it that time. So I've basically brought in my digital ID up here. And then down here at the bottom, what I've done is I've added a seal, right? And what you can do is you can import PDF files. And the best thing to do is to start by creating a custom stamp, for those of you that know how to do that. We do that in our training sessions. And I created one called my Registered Architects License PDF. So I created that ahead of time, and I've put that in the file. Now, we are able to kind of take these guys and hold down our left button and then drag them over in the position. So I'll drag my signature over, and I'll go ahead and drag over the seal. I can then also grab corners and resize that. So, well, resize it a little bit more, move it over a little bit. Okay, so I've added now my seal. See if I can kind of pull over here and show you. I've added my registered architectural license, and I've already added my signature to the file. So with that all set, down here at the bottom right, I'll go ahead and click on Done. And it'll go through and it'll begin to sign the documents. Now, the reason I shortened it to just 12 is it takes a couple of minutes to actually go through and process this. But imagine if you have a 300-sheet set where you had to do this on each of those sheets. It would be a major time-consuming operation, and probably unpleasant, and most likely you would miss one or two sheets in the process and have to come back. So again, this is all automated for you, and your document is now signed, sealed, and secure. So there we go. And I'm on the first sheet. I can go all the way down to any of these sheets, and you'll see that they are all signed and sealed. Okay? Pretty cool. Let's see what we got next. Okay, so measurement enhancements. Polylength and segments, splitting and resuming, and rise and drop that you can add to these segments. So let me come back in. As a caveat to this, I'm thinking I found something that is potentially, I won't say a bug, but is problematic for me at the moment. I'll point it out to you just so you don't run into the same situation. And I'm discussing it with Bluebeam support at the moment. So we'll take a look and see how that works. You'll notice that I've got this kind of blue ductwork system going on over here. I'm going to click on the bottom right over here, the dimmer button, to kind of dim everything down. And on the top, I'm going to start the measure area, and I'm going to click on this new feature here that's called Polylength. So with Polylength, over here it says Polylength measurement. I'm going to come back and make adjustments to that in a little bit, but I will begin on the end of where the air handling unit is, and I'm just going to draw like roughly here. I'm going to actually click at this point here to add a, actually, you know what, I won't. I'll come back and add one. I'll show you how to do that. So I'll come back over here and come over to here, click on this. I'll double click, zoom out, come on down to here, and it's just rough. See if I can get a little closer. And then I'll come along and double click at the end of this. So it's 265 feet, 6 1/32 of an inch. You'll also notice that each of the segments has a length on there. So if we look at the properties for this, if I come over to the properties, you'll notice over here that we have an area where we can choose whether or not we want to show the segments or not. So I could say show the segments or don't show the segments. I could also say align them horizontally. You also have the ability to add captions. So for captions, right now we have label and length, but there are some other items that you could add as well if you wanted to. Okay, so that is the poly length. So let's take a look at splitting and then resuming. So let's say, for example, I'm going to turn off the segment part. Let's say, for example, right across here, I've got a, let's say, a duct run that changes size. So what I'm going to do is click near there, right click, and go ahead and add a control point. Now, I got that pretty close that time. Okay, so what I would do with that control point, so this is still a single object, right? It's still all one object. You can see down here in the markup list that there's all just one length at the moment. So I can right click on that control point and I can choose split. And you'll notice in the markup list I now have two lengths, okay? So I have this length on top and you can see the boundary for that, and I have the length on the bottom, okay? To clarify even further, I'm going to click on the top, and in the properties, I'm going to change it from poly length to calling it, let's say, a 12 by 10 duct. And you'll notice when I do that, it changes in the markup list as well. I can also do it in the markup list down here at the bottom left. I could double click on there and call that 10 by 8 duct, right? So now I have, well, but I should have, I should have also gotten rid of all of the other text. Usually it's better to do it at the top. So let me do it this way, 10 by 8 duct. Okay, so one of the new features in here is, other than being able to do that and split it, is now maybe I want to add or resume from here and continue to add some ductwork. So if I right click on that dot, I have the option to resume. But notice what it's resuming. It's resuming the 10 by 8, not the 12 by 10. Even though I have the 12 by 10, you can see in the upper right here, the 12 by 10 duct selected. When I right click on that point, it has the 10 by 8 duct. So the only thing I've been able to figure out so far is to click on the 10 by 8, hold down my left button, and just drag that dot off temporarily. And I can now right click on this and I could choose to resume the 12 by 10 duct. So I personally think that that's probably something that needs to be looked into by the support at Bluebeam, but maybe it's working as is. I'm not 100% sure. Let me double click and we have that. So that's how you can split and resume. Okay, so let me go on to the next one, rise and drop. Okay, so not every piece of ductwork simply is flat or piping or things of that sort. So if I select the 12 by 10, maybe we have, as we get into this corridor, a 2-foot drop in the ductwork or a 2-foot rise in our piping. So again, with that selected, we can come over to the measurements portion of that particular markup, and notice over here notice over here I have something called rise drop. So I could go ahead and add in, let's say, a 2-foot drop to that. Okay, and I'll go ahead and click out here. Now, let me come back over to properties and turn back on. Let me select it, and we'll turn back on show segment values. We could also turn on show captions, and we've got rise drop, length label. And so if I were to look for the information, here it is. The length is 169 feet 9 inches with a rise drop of 2 feet. Okay, so pretty cool new features. The only thing is that what I will call politely a little glitch in terms of which of these guys gets selected. Slope. So if you have been doing areas, large areas that might slope, you'll know that when you do an area on a 2D drawing, it's going to be considered flat. And so it was kind of tricky to figure out what area you actually had. So let me close this particular file, and I've got a different one, a roof plan, for example, that I've already placed some areas in. And in one of them, I already added a slope. Let me go ahead on this one and show you how we add a slope to that particular area. So again, on the right panel, under the measurement tools, you have the ability here. Let me expand this out a bit. You have the ability here to add a pitch. I'll pull that over a little bit further. Okay. So we have it's set to 0 and 12. You can also set it to a degree if you knew the degree, or a grade if you knew that. So typically your pitch would be, let's say, something like a 1/4 inch per foot or 1/8 inch per foot. So if I put in 0.25, it goes ahead and puts that in. You'll notice the area didn't change very much, right? So 1/4 inch per foot really didn't add very much to that. If I were to add, let's say, 1 inch per foot, still didn't quite do it. If I were to add, let's say, 6 inches per foot, you'll notice that that definitely does change it. So if you were doing roof areas, you will have stronger or larger pitches than you'll have, let's say, on let's say a gable roof or a hip roof than maybe on a flat roof. But even on a large kind of industrial roof like this, if you had a very long length, even at a 1/4 inch per foot, that might affect the area. So again, you're going to be getting more accurate takeoffs and markups with that. Cutouts. So let me show you some changes made in cutouts. Let me go ahead and close this file. And I'll open up the house plan. Now, one thing that I wasn't aware of, and you might not be either, but it's kind of interesting. It's in the 2016 product as well. If you output to PDF from the add-ins tab versus in Revit versus from the print function for Bluebeam, one of the settings is that you can take rooms in Revit and output them as these area markups. So all of these areas, 30 square feet or 22 or 57, all of these were automatically created from rooms. Now I'd had a room in here with the cutout for the column, and what I found was that Bluebeam doesn't handle a rectangular space with a circular cutout in the middle of it very well. It tries to attach things together, and so what I did is I simply deleted that particular room when I outputted it and basically retraced this inside of Bluebeam. But you end up with, let's say, a couple of areas here where I need to change the square footage of this. So 763 square feet right now. I have a counter area that I want to change, and I also have this circular column. So for the cutouts, again, up here on the measure tab, we have the cutout tool, and we can do polygon cutouts and we can do elliptical cutouts. Now the cutouts can be at the border of the form as well. So they don't have to be internal. They can be on the edge if something needs to be cut out from there. The ellipse cutout is a little funky how it works. It should really be designed to allow you to pick axes which is the way most people work with ellipses. And instead what it does is define the rectangular boundary that the ellipse fits into. So I'll show you a way to kind of fudge that and make that work a little bit better. Let's work with the polygon cutout to start with. I'm going to hold down my left button at one corner of the, actually let me zoom out so I can see both. I'm going to hold down my left button at one corner of the counter and let go at the other, okay? So I get a nice rectangular cutout, and the area has dropped to 731 square feet. Let me see if I can pick this with the shift key. Does that do it? Yeah, let's see if I can do that. Okay, so there's the, just holding down the shift key allows you to move that. For the circle, what it's going to try to do is it's going to try to define, I need to define the boundary. So it's going to be kind of hard to find this corner here and this corner here with just a little set of crosshairs. So in the upper right, if I click on the R for review and I turn on my full screen crosshairs, for those of you AutoCAD people who love full screen crosshairs, there are your full screen crosshairs. Let me go ahead and choose the cutout for ellipse. And now what I'm going to do is kind of line these guys up on the edges, tangent to the left and top, hold down my left button, drag so I'm tangent to the right and the bottom. And yeah, I know it's not the ideal situation, but it's pretty darn close, right? Pretty darn close. Okay, so that dropped to 723 from 731. I'm going to get rid of these full screen crosshairs. You also have the ability to pick these. So I can pick that shape and go back to its properties, and it's called floor right now. And I could call it column, right? And then down here in the markup list, that area would be now listed as a column. You would also be able to pick, let's say, this boundary here, whoops, this boundary here, and I could go ahead and call that, instead of column, I could change and call, oh, they're both selected. Let me see if I can I deselect? Maybe not. There we go. Let's see if I can create this guy. There. Somehow I got them. It's finding all of those boundaries. So they're probably not including that as a column, but we could add an area measurement to those and a material to those by simply coming through and now adding in, picking this, and let me see if I can do area. And just pick right inside there. There we go. And it automatically filled that. And now I've got 32 square feet. And that particular area boundary, that markup, I can now, instead of calling that windows, I could call that counter. Okay, so you can use the area tool, and the area tool has that little picture that you can pour in. And so I was able to create that and call that counter area. Okay, so very useful cutouts and being able to then use that fill tool for them. Let's go over segments, captions, width, and height. Okay, so let's see if I can get this to work. Now, 2 days ago it worked fine. Yesterday it didn't work at all. And earlier today it worked fine. So let's see which day it's going to be for me today. Let me come over. I'm going to close this file. One of the things that was requested, let me come back to this particular set here. One of the things, actually, that's not the set I want. I think I want this set over here. Let's do this one. No? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to turn the light bulb back on. Let me go over to one of the elevations here. Okay, so let's say what I was trying to do would be to take off the area for this particular window. Okay, so if I click on area, and it's called area measurement right now, I can go ahead and click at this corner, hold down my left button, and drag and press escape. Go ahead and click on that and set that, call that area measurement. I'll call that window. Okay. There are down here, again, in the properties palette, we have the ability to show segment lengths, right? So I could turn on those segment lengths if I wanted to. And we also have, what was I working on? I was showing you captions, width, and height. So you have the ability with this, it's sort of automatically, let me go back over to measurement properties. See, it's already kind of grayed that out for me on width and height because I kind of because it measured it exactly. But we'll take a look at adding that value in on some of the others. So I have width and height. I could go ahead and adjust the properties and say, well, I'm going to show caption. So I could say show the width and show the height for that, right? So I would now have, let me hold down the control key. No, let me try the shift key for that. Let's see if I can undo that or not. There we go. Let me go ahead and add back in the properties. Let me click that. And I could go ahead and move that over, let's say here. And again, under properties, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and add in, let's say, height. Okay. So you have the ability to do that. Also, you have down in the markup list for the different items, you have the width and the height listed as well. The actual width and height are still listed as columns, although I don't actually have them turned on, I don't believe, at this point. Oh, there it is. So I do have them, but I'm not sure where it is. So you have document width, and there's document length as well. So even though that's measuring 3 by 5, if you wanted to, you could it still would have the actual width in the document itself. Now, if we went back to a floor plan, one of the things that was requested was the ability to, if we had, let's say, this doorway, and you notice that doorway is kind of on an angle. So if we look at an elevation of that, you're not going to get a very accurate area takeoff. So under measure, if I were to use, let's say, length, and click, let's say, at this corner here, and then double click at this corner here, right? I have 16 feet 2 1/4, but if I select that, I have the ability in the measurement tools to add a depth to that. So if that door were, let's say, 8 feet high, I could add that to it, and I would now have that show caption. Maybe I could show the depth as well. So I would be able to see that that was 16 feet wide. The depth was 8 feet. I would be able to use the depth down here in the markup list and multiply that by a cost and be able to multiply that length by the depth, figure out the area, and then be able to figure out costs. So that's something new that was added in 2017. Okay. Count enhancements. Oh, this is where it worked and where it didn't work the other day. So let me show you that feature in here. Now, it would be really good if things were the same on each floor. So it would be good if you had kind of the same window arrangements. See these 4 windows across here, and across here I have these 4 windows. So this is on level one of the levels. This is on the other. So let's go ahead and see if I can. I think this is the overall plan, and this is an enlarged plan here. But let me see if I can sort of make the demo work for you. So for counts, if I came back over to the tool chest, if we came back over to our measure tool, or measure over here on the right panel, you have something in there called counts, or here's something called count, right? And with count, typically what you would do is click and it would put in a check mark, right? Now, you may not like the look of the check mark. Maybe you want something custom. So you can come in and choose really any symbol. You can create any symbol you want. I'll go ahead and pick the star this time, and I will right-click on the star, and I will choose the last item, create a count item. And I will drag the count item, let's say, down into my custom tool chest here, and I'll go ahead and my tool set, click on that, and now I can place that count in the file, right? So I can place that count. Let me go ahead and add a couple of different ones, and then I'll go ahead and do it again here. Okay. So now what I have in there is, let me sort by item name. Let me see if I can scroll this guy back to the top. And I'll go ahead and see if I can pick this. And we'll come back to properties, and we'll call this window. Okay. And let me see if I can get the subject. Let me see if my subject column is in here. It is. I just need to slide this guy over. Okay, so here's my subject. Let me go ahead and click on that. We'll sort. And there's my count measurement, right? And there's count measurement, and I'll change that to window as well. Okay, so now I have counts, windows. I have some window counts in here. There's that window count. There's that window count, and there's that window count. Okay. Let me go ahead and delete. I'm going to delete that one. Okay. And let me delete that one. Okay. So I have the window counts here. See if I can get to the top. All right. So I have my two window counts. Okay. So there are my two window counts. With those, with the counts, if I came back over to the measure function, see, this is where it's grayed out on me. So normally you're able to adjust that. It might be that it's set to multiple counts, but normally I'm able to get to that width and height, but we'll ignore that right now. We're still trying to figure out what's going on with that, but normally you're able to set that. Let me show you, though, how we can take that custom symbol. We can do splitting and we can do merging with those. So let's say, for example, these two symbols here, I need to place some kind of unique symbol on this, or maybe it's different from the others. So I can put my cursor on the that particular symbol, right-click, and I have the ability to split the counts. So now for Windows, you'll notice I have 3 of those listed in there, okay? So I have this guy here, and it still has width and height grayed out. So I should be able to, this is what I was saying, where I was able to adjust that one day, and now I'm not able to. So I'm working with Bluebeam to sort of see what's going on here. Some of the symbols work, some of the symbols don't, some of the times. Okay, but we will get that figured out. It does work, or it is a feature that's supposed to work. So when you do the count, you can also add a width and a height to a count item, so that's also something for the window. Not only would you have a number, but you would have that in there. Now, let's say I have this broken out, and I have this, and I now have, let's say, this and these. So I have these 3, and I held down the Shift key to select all of those. And one of the problems that you have, notice there's 3 different counts here. So if you're doing counts and you stop at one point and then start again, it created a new list. So I was like, oh, really? Can't I like put those together? And in the past, the answer was no, you really couldn't. Now, with multiple counts selected, I can right-click and I can choose to merge the counts. And you'll notice now they're all in one count, okay? It also turned on the length and the depth based on those items. So I'd probably come back over to properties and tell it, see if I can get it to turn those off. So I probably wouldn't want to show the captions for those. Okay, so those are your custom counts, being able to split and merge them. And there's the width and the height. You actually can edit those. I just am not able to right now. So I'm working with Bluebeam to try to figure out if it's me or if it's the product. Okay. Again, you can show the caption. So again, I just turned that on and off. I showed you how that worked. And the other thing that you can do, although it doesn't necessarily make sense in this particular file, but let's say you had the same condition in on the next floor of the building. So I could right-click on this and choose Copy, and then I could go into my thumbnails, and in here, I could come and right-click and choose to paste. Right? Now, it's clearly not in the same location, so that didn't really work in this particular file. But if you have files where you have one floor after another that are the same, rather than having to go into each sheet and add your count, you can do it on one and then copy and paste it to these other thumbnail views. Okay. Let me go ahead and deal with 360-degree photos. So the product now supports the ability to take 360-degree photos with a certain types of cameras. Those are listed on the Bluebeam website. And those can be attached as a capture to a markup. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to go to this sheet here. And let's say I've taken a 360-degree photo of this area that I'm circling. So I'll go ahead just quickly and put an area markup in, just roughly dragging that shape out. I'll go ahead and select it, right-click, and you have Capture in the pop-up list from File. And what I'll do is I will go over to my folder, and I will go to Images, and there is a 360 photo that someone took out in the field, and I'll place that in the file. Now you'll notice it adds it as this small icon at the bottom right corner, and if I go ahead and click on that, it opens up that photo, and I can now move around in 3D, 360 degrees. There's this kind of odd view of your hand over your head holding the camera, but you know, that's life in the big city, right? There's no way to kind of block yourself out if you're actually taking the pictures. But you get a complete view of the entire floor. Makes it very easy to observe what's going on, and there's a whole bunch of icons in here that you can play with, okay? So that's the 360-degree photo. Let me go back over to here. 3D enhancements. Again, navigation and metadata have been improved. Support for other file formats. And again, plug-in enhancements for the CAD and Extreme for a variety of other products. From Revit and AutoCAD, and now supporting SketchUp 2017. So let me bring up a 3D file and just show you some of that metadata. I've got a corporate headquarters here. Let me call this up. And this was exported as a 3D model out of Revit. And so there's my model. And what I'm going to do is at the bottom, I am going to hide my markup list. And in the upper left, I'm going to go ahead and show the 3D model tree. So you'll notice that I now have this model tree in here, and I can get to really any of the data I want. So if I was kind of wondering where this door is on level 1, there it is, right? Or on level 2, if I scroll down, I could go ahead and say where is this, whatever this generic model is. It would take me to that particular item. You have the ability to change the color of these to other colors if you want. And there's lots of other data in there. You have the element ID. You could go back to the Revit file and find that. You really have lots and lots of controls that you didn't have in the previous versions of Revu. So with that, to learn more, you simply visit our website, microsolresources.com/products/vendor/Bluebeam, or send us information, info@microsolresources.com, and we'll be happy to reply.